welcome to CMN103, Introduction to Creative Industries. Today I have Retha Scheepers with me today, a specialist in entrepreneurship at USC, and she's going to be talking to us today about entrepreneurship. And although this is going to be specifically helpful for your task 2 assessment item, it's actually going to be really useful for you to start thinking about entrepreneurship as one of those key concepts within the creative industries. And by the end of the session, by the end of this discussion, you'll know why. But certainly when you start to look at how you're going to find a niche for yourself and engage in the creative industries, you are going to have to be entrepreneurial. So we're going to be talking a little bit today about what that is, what is entrepreneurial thinking, and how can you capitalise on that. So welcome, Retha.
Thank you, Gail.
Okay, so my first question is, how is the world of work changing? So I've sort of alluded a few times now to the fact that the world of work is changing. But how is that, and why is that, and how do we then, if we're emerging as creative industry artists, how do we navigate that? What do we need to know?
Well, I think if you start to talk to people broadly, you can see that there are really 3 big trends that's driving this. One is globalization. So today we can sit in Australia, we can make this video, we can have a chat, and anybody all around the world can watch it at their own convenience. So we're really part of this global village, and there's a lot of online channels, and a lot of creative artists create engaging content or create audiences, and they're not limited by geographical boundaries. And of course, people are really mobile. They can move around. They can work from anywhere, basically. So globalization, a big thing, can be seen as use it to your advantage or how it may disadvantage you. It's up to you how you see that. And then a big thing, like I've already mentioned, that goes hand in hand with that is this whole idea of the technological change and automation. So today, on the one hand, we hear that the robots are taking over. But on the other hand, you know, you've got to ask, well, how can they make my life easier? What do I hate doing? And what is it that can be automated? And hopefully a robot can take care of that. So I have someone clean the house. So I just turn it on. That's right. So technological change is another big thing that's driving it. And then, of course, actually worldwide, a lot of companies are downsizing. So this is something that was maybe not such an issue for creative artists, but actually a lot of people are in this boat of having to find a job or creating a career for themselves. So this is something which I guess creative industry people have always dealt with, but now it's a bigger, broader kind of issue the world over.
It's really interesting because Retha and I have also been doing some research around graduate employability, and that's looking at, we're looking at what do those key stakeholders, the people that are going to be employing you, the people that are going to be collaborating with you, what are they looking for in graduates? What should we be developing in our programs to really support you to be as employable and as job ready or work ready as possible? And part of that research has identified something about the kind of fluidity of the workplace as well. Did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's right. So there's something around which is called Protean careers or boundaryless careers. The idea that you won't, let's say somebody in 20, 30 years ago would have worked for one employer and tried to advance within that one single employer and try to get promoted. But today this is very different. We find people often doing project work. Almost everybody builds a reputation for themselves, and even if you're working for an employer, if you don't have that reputation outside, you actually have less value. So having value in the market or being employable, being ready to jump to the next thing, makes you more valuable for the organization. So this idea of being enterprising within an organization as well as for yourself and building a reputation for yourself, when I think that is really key. And one of the things that came out of our research is really this ability to build this online professional identity for yourself. And the great news is actually that you can do this now. Like you can be thinking initially when you're starting your studies, you can be thinking of who is it that I want to be, and you can be developing that professional identity as you go through and looking for different projects that you like, that you want to engage in, that you want to be part of the narrative of who you are.
I love that. So you start to talk about being enterprising, and I suppose that leads us quite neatly on to entrepreneurship. what is being enterprising? What is entrepreneurship?
Right, so this formal definition that I'm going
Okay.
to try and remember. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do that.
We can always put it up on the screen.
Without notes, but
Yeah.
it's about seizing opportunities that exist out there, and opportunities come from changes. But you don't control those opportunities, and you're trying to really generate a business opportunity from that has value to someone. So that act of going after opportunities, regardless of the resources that you have, means that it's not about profit. It's actually about changes that you see and designing an engaging project around that has value for someone. That someone, if we sort of go in business terms, will go, oh, that's a market. If we go in maybe communication terms, we'll go, oh, that's an audience. So it's for specific someone or a group of people, and they see value out of that, and because of that they will engage with you. So you can see that you could do this inside an organization as well, because you could be doing something valuable because of something that has changed in an organization, and to do that you kind of need to think about things in new ways. So it's about being innovative. It's about being proactive, doing something ahead of the curve instead of waiting for people and then following them. And there's some element of risk, because you don't always know how it's going to turn out. It could not work.
Yeah.
The great thing nowadays is that actually, our failures can be forgiven. People are a lot more forgiving these days. And you can go, oh, what did I learn from that?
Yeah, nice.
And then ask, what's the next thing?
Yeah, so we were talking with Paul Williams from Creative Writing, and he was talking about failing brilliantly. And the main difference between, I don't know if you can remember this, but the main difference between failing badly and failing brilliantly was when you fail badly, you beat yourself up about it. And all you do is think about what went wrong and how it went wrong. And to fail brilliantly is to reflect on it and think, what did I learn from that? Great. Okay, what will I not do next time? What will I do next time? So it's a bit of a mindset, isn't it? It's the act of failing is almost inevitable if you take risks, and we have to take risks. And by the way, even if you try to get that job, which is one of those jobs for your life, that's at risk, because there are more kind of varied employment structures now than they've ever been. So playing safe is no longer playing safe. So in some ways, even though you're a creative industry artist, and therefore you'll need these skills of entrepreneurship, I think we all do now, regardless of our profession. So we've got to learn to fail brilliantly.
Yeah, in the entrepreneurship world, we kind of, we're not necessarily very artistic, but we link the idea of failing to almost dancing, right?
Nice.
So we call this, when you learn something that kind of surprising, you go, oh, well, how should I change? And that change we call a pivot. So, like the ballerina would pivot. So you might try and do that elegantly, but if you don't, you just kind of, in retrospect, can reframe it as a pivot.
You can just imagine yourself doing that at home, okay? So next time, just give yourself a little pivot. So we're going to talk about these three notions or concepts of ideas, business concept, and opportunity then. Did you want to tell us a little bit about these in terms of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so when we talk about entrepreneurship, people often think, oh, I should have some kind of brilliant idea, some idea that somebody's never ever had before. And the reality is that actually ideas are a dime a dozen. And it's what you do with that idea that's more important than actually having the idea. And once you start acting on the idea, it will change, because you will, like we've just said, you might try something, it doesn't work, so you have to make a change anyway. So it's not about having the idea. So stop pressurizing yourself to have the perfect idea. Yeah. Just go with that idea, try and do something about it, and we then say, if you can put that idea, put a business concept behind it, so ask yourself, who cares about this? Yes. Who is it valuable to? How can I do this? Is there a way that if people value it, they're perhaps prepared to pay for it? So they're perhaps and paying for it is what we really mean, you are willing to make a sacrifice to get that. So today money is really a sign of I'm willing to sacrifice something to get that. So it's a sign that it's valuable. So thinking about money not in terms of exploitation, but rather somebody's kind of showing their appreciation, or they're willing to give up something, the money they've worked for, to get what it is that you're offering. So that's putting a business concept behind it. And then if that idea of yours with the business concept goes together with this idea of the opportunity, and we'll explain now what's the opportunity, that is what together makes the potential that it can be an enterprise.
So you said you're just only teasing us. Just going to tell you about opportunity. What do you mean by opportunity? What are opportunities?
So
In this
opportunities
context?
is often something that has changed. There's some kind of change that can either be seen as favorable or unfavorable. We prefer to see it as favorable. And now that there has been a change, it means that now creates a gap or a chance for you to do something. And so we kind of go, well, opportunities can come from different sources. There's either things like trends, long-term trends. So think about health or sustainability, right?
Yeah.
We know we need to change. It's a long-term trend. We're always going to ask ourselves, well, the whole thing around plastic bags going out, and how can we kind of live more sustainably? How can we use more sustainable packaging? How can that, and how can packaging be beautiful? That's really a big kind of question for artists. So I'm just going to slip in an example here. A friend of mine recently gave me this bee wrappy. So bee wrappy is actually made from beeswax, and it's beautifully designed. It's got the most amazing, I think it's Indigenous Australian sort of patterns on there, and you can just wrap your fruit in that, and it's beautiful because the people who make it have made a whole story about it. And so something like that is, we're tired of wrapping our food in plastic.
Yeah.
We don't want to kind of be part of the problem. And these people have seized on that opportunity, and that's really a long-term trend. That opportunity is made by the sustainability trend, and people wanting to live better.
And as creatives, you see, because Uwe was talking about design, and he was talking about the relationship between functionality and aesthetics. And so what that company seems to have done is to use their creativity and their understanding of the aesthetic experience. You want to hold something that feels nice. You want to look at something that looks good, as well as the functionality. You don't want it to be plastic.
Yeah, and it really is beautiful. So go look it up. Bee wrapping.
You've got shares in the company.
No, not at all. I just love the story. I just love how people, kind of turn something that's a problem into something positive.
And that's exactly our challenge and our opportunity as well. So you've got these kind of unique resources as well as a creative to think about. So what are the students' kind of unique resources that they have?
Yeah, that's right. So often when we try and think of, what kind of business should I start, but I don't have money, but I don't have this, but I see all these people out there, it almost makes you despondent. So what you need to focus on is first yourself, and every one of us is unique. I'm sure my kids would laugh at that thing because I go, oh yeah, Mom. Anyway, but the thing is about uniqueness is there's something that you're passionate about, that you really love, that might be different from what your friends like, or maybe if you look at your siblings, you can sort of go, right, I'm different from them. I really like this thing. So what is that thing that you care about? And then you've got some knowledge, either things in your life that you know, or things that you've learned from travels, or because of friends you've had. So you've got some unique knowledge, and you're also getting some formal knowledge at university, which might be similar to other people, but if you link that to your passion, it's already a different variant. And then the people that you know will help you with that passion project that you might have, because they might be interested in the same things as you, or they may have gone through a similar situation where they've encountered some problems, so they can kind of go, oh well, I can help you. You can chat to these people. They have had this similar experience. So that thing of who I am, what I know, and whom I know is the first place to start with anything, because money there is not an excuse or an objection that you have to work. You first have to work out what is it that I can do right now with what I have and what I care about, And if you get traction with that, that then leads you to the next thing.
Yeah. So you talked about passion, and I'm sure most of you there at home, you know what your passion is. It might be a passion for social justice. It might be a passion for surfing. It might be a passion for, game design. But if a student doesn't know what their passion is, how might they ask, or what might they ask, or how might they find what their passion is?
Actually, I think there was this, there's the Greek philosophers really said it best, and they said, what is it that you want to be remembered for?
Oh, nice.
If you ask, if people talk about you, what will they say about you? What is it, that thing that, and I think you can also figure it out if you sit in a conversation and people are talking about something and you've got something inside you and you just go, no, it's not like that, it's like this. Or you're like, oh, I know. That thing inside you kind of gives you that hint about that's what gets you up, that's what gets you excited, or that you're willing to fight for that injustice that you see. Then you can, things that move you are the things that you care about. And often we find that it's giving to other people is actually what's really engaging. So that can be applied in, a great many different varied things, but it's often that doing something for someone else is more satisfying than doing something for me. So if you're looking around, maybe try some stuff that you want to volunteer and see if that is something that leads you closer to finding that passion.
Yeah, and the sort of questions that I ask my children, different questions from the questions I ask my husband. So I'll sort of ask my husband, what would you do if you didn't have to worry about money? If money was no object, what would you spend your time doing? My children, who are a bit too young to kind of really understand that concept that money is a restriction, certainly don't act in any way as if money is a restriction. I'll ask them, what would you spend a whole year doing? What would you love to spend a whole year doing? So those sort of questions as well make you sharpen your kind of framework, if you like, to think, what do I love doing? What would I do if I didn't have money? What do I want to be remembered for? What is my unique contribution? What do I feel strongly about? So if you ask yourself those questions, then that's what you should be putting your energy to as well, because that is unique to you, that and your set of skills. Now, I remember I had a student once who was really passionate about animal welfare, and her skill set was photography. And so she combined those two and started to work in the field of animal welfare by capturing images of both, animals that were being looked after very well, but also animals that were being mistreated. So you'll have your passion and you'll have your skill set, and then you just added that people that you know as well that might be able to support you in that venture. So something else that we need to think about as well is this notion of kind of finding a gap in the marketplace.
Yeah, so one thing that opportunities come from is from trends, but the next thing is from gaps.
Okay.
So, and what's actually really helpful here is if you, for example, travel and go overseas, you might encounter something on your travels that you find in some place that you don't find at home. Nice. And you go, oh, we really need that where I am, So that's a way to move out of your immediate circumstances to somewhere else is often a way to identify a gap. Or it may be that some big place has closed and there is nobody kind of serving that need that there was before. I just heard on the radio this morning how people were saying, oh, television is dead and now there's this whole debacle around sports rights and should people still watch their favourite sports. And so sometimes even things that are counter trends provide some gaps in the market. So like everything is fast food, but then you find slow food. Everything is computer generated, but then people still appreciate things that are handmade. So you often find these big trends and then there's these gaps with counter trends.
I know that sometimes I'll ask students if they're thinking about something specifically for task 2. I ask the question, what are the problems in your life? Think about your day. Is there a service or a product that would help you in your day or in your week or in your year? And then if it would help you, and it doesn't exist, obviously, this thing that would help you, if it would help you, ask other people would it help them as well? Do they have the same problems? You know.
Yeah, that's
So-
exactly it. So the problem, finding a solution to a problem is sort of the third thing that
Oh,
generates
okay.
opportunities. Right? So there's these three things, either a trend or a gap
Yeah.
or a solution to a problem. So those questions asking yourself those questions, what do I see? What are some of the trends? Even combining those three things may help you find like a nice opportunity that you want to work on for your project.
Okay, brilliant. And so how do we observe trends? Are there things that we can look for? Are there any guides? Is there any guidance?
You guys might like this. There's a lady called Faith Popcorn. That's not a real name, but it's sort of a stage name. And she's made this whole business around spotting trends.
Okay.
And she likes to be quite off the wall and wacky. So if you go look up Faith Popcorn's trends,
Yeah.
you'll find some of them. And she's got one of these called cocooning. And that would be like how people surround themselves in their house and make their house their cocoon, and they don't really want to go out. And then what is it that would make our house or our place really comfortable? And so she's kind of got these really wacky trends. So that's a nice place to go and watch. But actually, if you know how Google has all these many different businesses they do Google Trends. So you can actually go into like you look for Google Maps, you just look for Google Trends.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
And Google will also tell you about different trends, and you can go Google Trends Creative Industries. So just kind of looking for things like that might go, oh, well, these are kind of trends happening in creative industries.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So what do we take home from this conversation today? I think the first thing that I want to talk about is the fact that you have to do something. So entrepreneurial thinking might be a mindset of looking for opportunities and looking for gaps, looking for trends, but it's a doing, isn't it? You've got to actually act on these opportunities. Or
So
these
if you're
gaps
looking
or-
for these opportunities,
Yeah.
be active in them. You know, keep a kind of diary or make a Pinterest board where you pin all these ideas of other people that you may have found, or wherever it is, or write about it. I mean, just write a blog about it.
Yeah.
Other kind of inspiring ideas that you find. So be active about it. Yeah.
Be active and identify your passion.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's your sort of challenge for this week. To start really thinking about who are you, what do you love, what gets you out of bed in the morning, what would you spend a whole year doing, what would you do if you didn't get paid for it, and how do you want to be remembered. To really identify those things that drive you. Look at some of your daily routines that could be really enhanced. Is there a problem that could be supported and solved, if you like, or at least alleviated? Look at trends, but be entrepreneurial, keep looking and keep getting excited, I think, about the opportunities. I think that probably sums up the conversation today. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell the students?
No, that's
today?
great. Thank you, Gail.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so we'll see you next time. Thanks very much. Bye.